Welcome to the lecture for Chapter 17 that analyzes corporations and how public relations is utilized in the corporate sector. Following the U.S. recession that started around 2008, the view of corporations has taken a hit. Fewer than 3 out of 10 Americans feel corporations are trustworthy. Other research shows that business leaders and stockbrokers are some of the least trusted individuals in American society. Corporate PR practitioners, therefore, have to be aware of the public distrust while creating messages for various publics. Their messages have to be realistic and appropriate for publics that are overwhelmingly mistrusting. Today we will look more into media, customer, employee, investor, and environmental relations. Let's begin, though, by looking at the role of PR in corporate social responsibility. PR professionals have to be aware of how PR functions in the corporate sector. This includes knowing the reputation of a company at any given time. As I just mentioned, trust of corporations by the American public is very low. The current social and economic environment of the U.S. has pressured companies to display corporate social responsibility, or CSR. And there are 3 ways to show social responsibility. The first is to adopt ethical principles, the second is to pursue transparency and disclosure, and the third is to make trust a fundamental precept of corporate governance. An extremely important tip for PR practitioners is to counsel the CEO on CSR. Oftentimes they are disconnected and are completely unaware of how publics might be feeling about a product or issue. It is up to the PR department to make sure they are tuned in and aware. Corporations want to seek a better reputation for several reasons. The first is because responsible business practices ward off increased government regulation. The second is that companies with good policies and a good reputation usually have high employee morale and low employee turnover. And finally, a good corporate reputation favorably affects the bottom line. One area that PR professionals help corporations is in the realm of media relations. Because the media reports on corporate behavior, corporations often mistrust journalists. Corporate executives are often defensive because they believe the media only focuses on the misdeeds and can exaggerate the impacts on the environment and workforce. Common complaints corporations have against the media is that they are inaccurate, they offer incomplete coverage, they provide inadequate research in preparation for interviews, and they have an anti-business bias. The media responds to this perception by stating that it is difficult to report in a balanced manner because many company executives are uncooperative and erect barriers around them. Journalists don't have direct access to decision-making executives, which forces them to rely on other information. Furthermore, journalists often believe that business leaders don't understand balanced news because anything reported negative is seen as biased. This is where PR practitioners can help. They can stand in the middle ground in between the corporations and the media. PR pros, however, have to communicate factually, frequently, and consistently to help ensure strong communication between corporations and the media. Another area that PR professionals help corporations is in the realm of customer relations. Customer service is known as the front line of PR. Research shows that a person will share a bad experience with 17 people, while they will share a good experience with only 11 people. Word of mouth is especially important today because of the internet and blogs. Instead of just sharing bad experiences with 1 to 2 dozen people, technology allows an individual to share it with thousands or even millions. Corporations are not accepting of repeatedly negative postings on the internet and will file defamation lawsuits against individuals. In the past, customer service and PR have been separate entities, but today, companies are realizing that these two can work together to pinpoint problems that can affect an organization. In other words, customer relations can serve as a public relations barometer. There are several ways to monitor customer feedback, and these include monitoring customer inquiries on the organization's website, conducting content analysis on customer phone calls to analyze what the phone calls were about, and paying attention to consumer surveys. A serious and more complex threat to corporate reputation is consumer activists. The textbook offers numerous examples of groups that have aggressively protested products and companies, and it is a real situation that many organizations find themselves in. The key for PR professionals is to be proactive when consumer groups are knocking or banging at your door. Specifically, you should work with groups who are more interested in solutions than getting publicity. You should offer transparency and be open when communicating with activists. An activist wants results, so you need to turn their suggestions into action. There are also some things that you should not do. You should not get emotional when dealing with advocacy groups. You should not agree to work with anyone making threats. And you should not expect immediate results. Trust takes time, so it might take a while for activist groups to turn a protest into support. A third way that a PR professional can help a corporation is in the realm of employee relations. Within an organization, PR departments often work with the human resources department to communicate with employees or the internal publics. This communication must be deemed credible and trustworthy, or it will be ineffective and possibly detrimental to the company. When communicating with employees, it is important to use clear and simple language, especially when you're talking about complicated programs such as healthcare. You should talk about sexual harassment. There is a legal responsibility to make sure the workplace is not a hostile environment for workers. And you should also create policies and communicate them to employees through newsletters, workshops, and training sessions. An especially sensitive topic in corporations are when people are fired or their jobs are moved overseas. You should never tell the media before you tell your employees. Employees should be informed in person and not by a pink slip or email. And employees who are being retained should also be spoken to in person so they can know where they stand in the company and that they still have a job. Another group to be aware of in corporate public relations is investors. This type of issues management is known as investor relations. The goal of investor relations is to blend communication and finance to accurately portray a company's prospects from an investment standpoint. Key audiences for investor relations include financial analysts, individual and institutional investors, shareholders, prospective shareholders, and the financial media. This is the highest salaried field for PR professionals, and people in investor relations must be comfortable with numbers, communicating with the press, and delivering presentations. As we go further into the 21st century, another area of corporate responsibility that is gaining traction is environmental relations. It is becoming more common for companies to consider environmental and human rights issues in relation to their companies. Some have created campaigns to bring attention to water sustainability issues, the prevention of child labor, and fighting discrimination in the workplace. This wraps up the lecture for Chapter 17 that looked at public relations in the corporate setting. There are many publics a PR professional needs to consider when working for a corporation, and today we went over media, customer, employee, investor, and environmental relations. Big business today often has a negative perception, which can make it difficult for PR professionals to create positive messages that the public will believe. The key for corporate PR is to be proactive, transparent, and realistic with the messages companies create and disseminate to their publics. It can be hard to balance the needs of a company and its various publics, but hopefully today you gained some foundational knowledge to help make sense out of the realm. Thank you for listening.